Got the Prac agenda for June 7th, 2021. Welcome everyone. Did you want to start out by introducing yourself?
Yes, my name's Ron Isaacson. I'm the Deputy Director of Department of Public Service at Roaston. I handle the Department of Refuse, Streets, and Parks. Happy to be here, provide you guys an update on parks and what we've done. I've only been in the position a year and a half as the Deputy Director, but I come from state government, 17 years with the Department of Agriculture and Department of Transportation. My background is business management, turf, and horticulture, actually, so kind of like with your park committee here. But yeah, to provide you guys with our report once you get started. Nice meeting you guys.
Nice to meet you. Nice to be there. So review the action items from May's meeting. Specific action items that we had, there were two, weren't there? Just the two votes we had?
Perhaps. Yes.
Roll call.
Should we run roll call?
This is new to me, so.
It's okay. I can do a roll call.
Just
I appreciate it.
follow your roll call.
So if you just want to say yes when I call your name, or I. Quinn Baumgartner, Lindsay Bucher, Caleb Kristen, Aaron Finling,
Yes.
Randy Farringer,
Yes.
Todd France,
Yep.
Rick Giltz,
Present.
Will Harbauer,
Yes.
Christopher Patrick.
Yes.
Awesome. Tony Wade. And Ron, you don't count.
Okay.
All right, now we're good now.
Specific action.
I don't think we did. We had two motions in the past.
Yes, two motions, the one regarding paving.
On the restrooms.
Yes.
And those were taken to the recreation committee?
Yeah.
So, yep.
So anything to do with those?
I don't think it's
I assume, are they open now, the restrooms?
All restrooms are
Thank
open.
you. Sweet.
Thanks.
Currently working on all the fountains as we speak.
Great.
Okay.
Good news.
We're currently cleaning up 7 days a week, Monday through Friday with our staff now. That's good. Right. All COVID restrictions were removed from all the parks and all the bathrooms, shelters, etc.
The shelters are all open.
Yes, sir. Taking reservations as we speak.
Oh. That's nice.
So moving on to item number 2 regarding the minutes from May 3rd meeting. Does anyone
I didn't see anything.
Sir, suggestion?
Updated or changed. Well done, Heather.
as always?
Look good. So, I'll make a motion to
Yeah.
accept the minutes.
I'll second that.
Rick seconded. I'm just gonna go through roll and just say yes or no or abstain. Randy Farringer,
Yes.
Todd France,
Yes.
Rick Giltz,
Yes.
Will Harbauer,
Yes.
Christopher Patrick,
Yes.
and Aaron Finley.
Yes. That leads us to a Parks report. And we'll just go down the list. We'll start with Rick with Rivercrest.
Okay, took a tour of Rivercrest over the weekend. Nice job as usual. The only two things I noted, and one of them seems to be a recurring issue, one of the play toys on the playground, they're the spring units, and one's missing, so I assume it's broken. And I don't know what the value is of those, but those seem to be a high incidence of those getting broken. So anyway, I just make that mention because it's because of the other equipment there, everything else works well. And then I noticed there's a pine tree on what I would consider the west side of the park that probably going to have to come down. It looks like it didn't do very well, and probably going to come down or get blown down. But that's it. Otherwise, it looked like it'd been. Do they usually mow like on a Friday or
Well,
something?
today.
Oh, okay. Because yeah, this was.
We're trying to, with the holidays, trying to catch up with things with the rain, so.
Well, it looked great, it looked well manicured, and There was only one game going on when I was there, but all the fields, you know, it was like people are policing themselves as they should. So keep up the good work and thank you.
You're welcome.
End of report.
Next we have Will with Milestone Park.
Everything looks pretty good at Milestone. Small stuff. And yeah, I don't have much to report on Milestone. It looks good. So.
Okay.
Oh, so Riverside. Okay, so for Riverside, everything looks good at Riverside as well. I love that park. So my wife and I say this every time that we take a lot of walks down that way and go up the ramp and everything. Oh, I know. One thing I would say is the benches, the metal benches. Did notice like there is like, I don't know if it's rusting, but they're like in the crevices and stuff. It's starting to look like it needs to be like repainted at least. I wouldn't say it's rusting, but I'd say it probably needs to be taken care of before it turns into rust. So in those ones, yeah. I don't know how to describe it, but like between each of those like bars or slats on the benches. Yeah. So.
Noted, thank you. Yeah.
That concludes my report.
Okay. Jessica Kemp had Orleans Parks. We have to assign park to someone.
Will probably be a good idea going forward.
So we're short one member?
Currently, yes.
You're not aware of any applicants at the moment?
I am not. That is handled out of the mayor's office, so I don't know if you're, Elaine Pantorno handles, she's there, she's the mayor and the city administrator's executive assistant, so she handles getting people into places. So the mayor will make a, what is it, a recommendation or like an appointment, and then it'll go to a review committee, and then we'll find out about it.
Okay, sounds good. I guess in the meantime, if we have any volunteers for Take Orleans? Anybody who live in the area? Close by?
If no one wants to, I'll do it.
Okay.
So I need
Do we need
to,
to make a motion for that, or is that? No?
Nah.
Okay,
I like running on the trails going up towards the bridge. And
right.
I need to start running better, so I think
There's an
that'll,
incentive.
yeah.
Perfect. All right. Christopher, you have municipal park?
Yeah, as always, Streets does a great job with beauty. Everything looked good. I received a complaint from a couple people last week about the ball fields being shut down closest to the pool because of flooding. Went out there today and looked at it. Everything looked fine. They had people out there playing. You know, obviously it's a very active park. Everything looks great. The last meeting when we talked, I had asked for any correspondence or any information that we had previously gathered on a pool heater from previous bids, and I wanted to touch base on that and see if it was possible to get my hands on that info.
Unfortunately, I don't have any response to that. I will be happy to look into that for you. Hopefully, I can answer your next meeting.
Okay.
Our main focus is
Okay, thank you.
you know, get the pool open and it's running properly at this moment. So we'll cross our fingers.
Yeah, we got a lot of people out there today.
I guess they had a record number. Opening day was over 500 attendees.
Wow.
My wife made the honor for their opening day.
To the point where it turned cloudy the next day. So we had to do some deep cleaning on it. So but I stopped by there today and it's beautiful. We did some really good improvements this past COVID year. Something good came out of that. And the pool is running well, knock on wood.
Yeah.
So there were previous
That's all I've got.
there were previous bids on a pool heater then?
I'm not familiar with any, I'm not for certain on the heater.
Thanks, Chris.
Chris, this is Todd. Did you notice, I noticed last week, I believe, that on the back stops of one of the ball diamonds, there were some, I guess, privacy screens put up on the chain link, and one of those had blown down. Has that been addressed?
I'm sure it has been.
That I did not see.
Okay. My only reason for kind of bringing that up is, I think there was mention by somebody at one point about putting some kind of windscreens around the pickleball courts. And if the same type of material is put up that seems to be, that doesn't let wind pass through, I feel like we might have the same issues recurring, rather than a screen that's still blocking the view for the most part, but lets wind go through. Like the porous fabric.
I can tell you the material that we use at Rotary, for example, is nowhere near the material we use in kind of ball diamonds.
Okay.
It's two different materials, but yes, I would have to agree with your concern with the wind.
Yeah. Exactly. It's more like a tarp than a.
Yeah, it's not, in my opinion, it's not the best material currently, kind of ball diamonds, at Municipal Park, for example. But, yeah, that was put up by the Perrysburg Baseball Club. So, we had nothing to do with that, unfortunately. But we're aware of the screens being pulled down or having to be zip tied. Greg Coor did mention that he's still getting quotes on the pickleball screens. Still a work in progress.
That segues to you, Todd, for Woodlands Park.
No, I don't have Woodlands at Bicentennial.
I have.
Oh, you do? Okay. Yep.
I made a mistake in the April minutes for Woodlands.
Okay.
So yes, that is Randy with Woodlands.
Go ahead, okay.
All right. So I visited several times. What I noticed as of yesterday, there was on the Johnny Appleseed, by the bench, there was a huge tree limb. Well, not huge, but it was probably maybe like 6 feet that was kind of dangling onto the bench. So if we can just kind of have someone cut that branch off. And then the only other thing I had that was kind of a concern was I had a few people tell me that I noticed when it rains, more towards out in the back on the trail, there's huge puddles that kind of forms. So I'm wondering if that was possible, if we could look into putting a little bit more pebbles down.
It's already on the list. We have a schedule to be rescreened
Oh,
this year,
even
along with Bicentennial.
perfect.
Bicentennial, Woodland. We'll have
Low
those.
spot at Bicentennial?
Yeah. Yeah. But we're gonna add some fresh stone to both parks.
Okay.
And then other than that, still looks good. I noticed a bunch of cones were out around the driveway, parking lot, and that's where it appears to be all the like new grass is
So we
growing.
had that hydro seeded. After we did the pavement improvement last fall, we added, I think, approximately 12 spots, additional spots, and changed the direction of the exit and entrance of the park. When we added the new spots, we raised the pavement there and finally added more soil and reseeded it a couple weeks ago. So all the cones are there to kind of prevent people from pulling into the grass areas. And it is growing, so in time, both cones.
And then hopefully that'll also deter people not to be walking and stepping too.
Yeah, it's a heavily used park. It's the busiest park we have in the city, and we're making improvements slowly, for sure.
Alright. And then other than that, for right now, that is all I have.
Can I bring something up? Woodlands, on the playground, there's the, I don't know what they call them, the gliders. It's got the little handle that you hang on and swing back and forth on. Those have been out for like at least 5 years, so I don't know if that's.
Yeah, I know
something that
Greg
just-
is.
Once it breaks, it's broken, or it's.
No, it's hard because some of the playground equipment is old, outdated.
Right.
So you almost have to reconfigure the whole schematic of the thing and just order new, if you will. So it's hard to replace some of the old equipment that doesn't.
It's very for imagination.
Yes,
Feel like rigid set lines.
Yep.
but it's on our radar.
Okay.
We're looking into it.
Is there any update on the sculptures that are going in there?
The pads are being poured.
Okay.
I know that's.
We brought it up at our last
Bro-
meeting.
Brody.
We seem to know like a whole lot of details about it.
They're looking at having this all set up in place before the big event coming this fall, late summer, early fall. But it's all the pads are being poured and all electrical for each pad currently. It's kind of like out of my jurisdiction, if you will.
So that comes out of my office-ish, and my
Yeah.
administrator is handling most of it. I can ask that he write like
Brody.
a little blurb about what he's
Yeah.
got going on. I don't, it's not in my scope, so I don't
No.
know everything, but
Right.
I can,
Well, I'm still kind of new to this committee as well, so I'm just trying to get an understanding of if there's something big going in like that in a park. It seems like somebody on this committee, right, should know, and we should talk about it, I suppose. But
I agree with you, Todd.
I might have some information for you because I didn't know anything either, and I don't even know how I came across it. But I think it's there's a website where applicants can put in have their art put up there at Woodlands.
okay.
I believe it's called Main Art -ERY, like Main Artery, but Main Art -ERY.com. And that will take you to the website to, if there was an artist who's interested in like putting their piece of art up at Woodlands there. I don't even know how I came across it, but they've done stuff I think with the city before, it looks like. But they do a lot.
Hi, is this Aaron speaking?
This is Will, I'm Will, guys, this is Will.
Oh, hi, Will. Is this Will?
Yes.
Okay, hey, Will, it's Deborah Bourne.
Hi.
Hey, I wanted to mention, you were talking a little bit about the sculptures, and I wanted to have some information about that too. I was going to talk a little bit about that in my report. But I will mention that you are correct that Main Artery is the one that was contacted, and the information that I got was through the Convention and Visitors Bureau and here in Perrysburg, and apparently they're involved with it, and she is the gal, she is out of Sylvania, and she does all of the arranging for the music at the park, at the park, and then all for that series, the luncheon series over at Woodland, and then she also does the work for the music over at in front of the Commodore during the farmers market. So her name is Robin Balmer, Balmer. And I'll see if I can get some more information for you. Sure.
Thank you.
Got it.
Any more comments, Todd?
What's that? I don't.
Ron?
I need some updates regarding the last meeting.
Lindsay Huber with Eisenhower was not present. Next will be me with Bud. I was down there about a week and a half ago. It was great. Clean. Looks like they just built the privacy fence where the new porta potty's gonna go. And they are, looks like slowly closing on finishing the siding of the Perrysburg Yacht Club. Dragging hanging out over about a year or so, 2 years. So, otherwise, looked great. Free Meadows next.
Tony is not, he had emailed and said he wasn't gonna be here tonight, he's on vacation.
Okay. And bicentennial.
Sure. So everything looks good. There's one spot just off the parking lot off Mark Lane, which I guess is the west entrance, where there was a patch of grass between the parking lot and the walking path that I think there was some asphalt work done there some months ago, and that still has big tire tracks through it. I'm not sure if was fixed at one point and then it's been re-driven through, or if it was just always like that. Maybe I missed it. So I just want to bring that up.
Yeah, what it was, we had bollards there, bollards. All the bollards were old and decaying, rotting. So we pulled the bollards and then added soil and seeded that. And someone was nice enough to drive through it with their parking, with their cars. So what we had to do is set up some delineators, reseed that, and just reshape it again.
I did notice that, and I don't know what the policy is, but both at Woodlands and Bicentennial, the dump trucks, the city dump trucks that come and clean out the trash cans, they drive on the walking paths to go empty those. And it seems like that could be affecting it as well?
No, not necessarily. I mean, it's small rear loaders that drive the paths. Typically when the paths are dry, because there's so many refuse containers throughout that little path, there's really no way. You have to tip a lot of them. And there's dog feces containers. They get very, very heavy. So there's really no way of manually by hand, so therefore the trucks typically drive those routes. Small trucks. They're talking like the size of the pickup. Not the big rear loaders, but the small.
The one that I saw seemed pretty big to me. It wasn't like a pickup truck. It's a full-size garbage truck, but maybe half size.
There's truck number 260 and 263 that we operated. They're not as big as our full rear loaders, but they're pretty good sized refuse trucks. Well, you know, we always tell the guys to just be careful on paths, especially when we're not.
Okay. Good, anything else?
Yeah, that's all I have.
Okay. And then the last part would be a rotary, great curve. Have you been to Rotary recently, Ron?
Every day.
Every day. How's Rotary looking?
Rotary looks great. The tennis court, the east side, we finished the wind nets, the shade nets are up. All of our shade nets are up in every park for that matter. But the east side of the fence, we had to have Total Fence come in and repair the fence, if you didn't notice. It was bent over pretty good from the wind. So we lost the concrete supports in the posts, so we had Total Fence come in to straighten up the fence. So we can hang that shade cloth on that east side there. Playground is still a work in progress. The extra dirt from the playground will go to use. We haven't distributed out in the field yet. I know the shelter's being reserved more often lately than it's a beautiful shelter with the Rotary. We did end up changing the lock system on that. I don't know if you guys are aware of that or not. We put several $1,000s into the locking mechanisms of the doors to match our existing other parks. So that was updated recently.
Did they miss that in the initial?
I think so.
That's too bad.
So, but it's, in order to work within our system, all the parks and our locking systems need to be updated.
Yeah.
So that's been updated.
Shame on Judge Rome.
But no, it's a beautiful park.
Do you know a timeline for the completion of the
No, I do not. Sorry.
playground?
No.
I don't know why I was thinking that they anticipated it sooner rather than later. You know, I'm sure COVID's got an effect on their equipment and materials.
The installation days are June 21, 22, and 23 for all the equipment. I don't know when the final day is, but those 3 days are dedicated to installation.
I believe that concludes the parks report. If anybody has any last minute comments or questions? Anyone on the phone have any questions, concerns?
Well, actually, I want to say that I think you're doing a great job running the meeting.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Move us on to item 4, discussion of Fort Banks crosswalk study. I spent a fair amount of time looking it over last week, and without getting into too much complexity, I would like to say those are great options. All 4 seem perfectly viable for me, at least the 4 different placements of the crosswalk. And for me personally, I believe it was 1 and 3. To being a cyclist, anytime you have to cross near intersection is always concerning because people tend to neglect one or both ways of looking. So two kind of concerns me, and I think they actually know that as one of the disadvantages. And then 4 was a 4 where they had to move the school zone lane, which I'd be concerned with the expense of that.
Yeah.
I think it was actually, I think
Was it 2 days?
Yeah.
Do I have to move? Okay.
yeah.
For me personally, I think 1 is probably one of the kind of deals.
What was your concern about 2 as a cyclist?
Well, not as a cyclist, but for someone crossing a crosswalk, right, or someone potentially could be pulling right or left out of there, more so it would be if you're turning right out of that parking lot by the tennis courts. You know, as a cyclist, that happens a lot. If you're crossing and a car is turning right, they tend to ignore people that are coming at them. And if you had children walking across to get to the Rotary Park, you know, someone in an automobile may not see them. Whereas at location 1, someone turning right out there is going to be, at that point, going straight, so they're going to have full view of the crosswalk. That's just kind of my personal opinion, past history.
Did anybody notice what I noticed? This is Councilwoman Bourne. On location number 4, it says just south of Riverside Park Drive and north of I-75. I think they mean River Crest. That'd be a really long crosswalk. That was on page 13 on the study.
But then it does no road across the park.
I made a few copies of the study, so they should be up there if anybody needs.
Yeah, I think we all have.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would kind of agree with you too. You know, 1 and 3 seem pretty good.
Number 1 is the one that's just north of the tennis courts? Is that right?
Yes.
Page 26, okay. I'll jump in. My thought was, I guess not in agreement. I actually liked number 2 because it connected directly to that path that's already in existence. To your thought there, Aaron, about, and I can understand that, but I guess I kind of viewed it as if somebody was leaving Rotary Park and turning right on Fort Meigs, it would be very similar to an intersection. But I can really understand your point about not quite looking there just yet. I think my issue with number 3 was that if you would cross that street, you still going to have to cross the main wide driveway on Rotary Park to get to, I assume most people are going to take that path that's just south of the tennis courts to get to the playground. And if somebody's coming, say, from the neighborhoods north of there, which there's a lot of houses up there, they're going to have to essentially pass the playground, and that's going to be less enticing for them. But the same kind of idea is if it's at 1, those coming from the neighborhoods to the south are going to have to pass the tennis courts and pass the playground, and again, less enticing, and 12-year-olds are just going to want to take the shortest route. And I don't really think there's a way to get through that rocky area that's north of the tennis courts.
Sure.
So
I might have an idea. I mean, well, it's probably all depends on what can be done. But there might be enough room for a path that would go between the tennis courts and that rocky, I guess, dry lake, what do you call it? That could remedy that situation a little bit. So you just put it north of there, the tennis courts. There might be enough room for a multi-use path that could then go around. So you'd still have a multi-use path below, south of the tennis courts, but if you have one right above that goes to the inclusive playground, that could work out really well. Might be a nice walking path anyway for people who want to walk around the park.
I think, and this is Councilwoman Bourne, and I think, isn't there a master plan for Rotary Park, as I recall? Rick would probably know. that says what they can have and not have in the park, or, you know, proper, and Rivercrest, I'm sorry, not Rivercrest, Rotary Park.
I think there was that intent initially, but I think that's kind of wavered a bit. I mean, they now have like rugby there and otherwise, which I think is older.
Okay, I think it goes back to 2008, the original one that I saw, and I think the idea was to stay sort of within the plan or work with the plan, was my understanding. So I just wanted to mention that.
Yeah, I remember that they had proposed that. I suppose that's still, yeah. I have that recollection, yes.
Okay.
I think that's a good idea, but Will, I'm looking at the satellite image, and it does appear that there's plenty of space on the north side of the tennis courts for an additional path. That's going to be the most expensive option, more so than moving that school light. But the issue with, I guess, the existing path that's south of the tennis courts is that it dumps you off just in the parking lot. There's no connecting trail, and while there could be a connecting trail put in, I suppose, it's still opposite the new shelter, and so that might get a little awkward around there instead of just a direct path from the sidewalk.
And I would add on top of that, I mean, I just referencing Kate's email about this being kind of outside of our scope.
Yeah.
The safety committee will make that decision. If we recommend, hey, maybe this is a decision that will be closer to what they're thinking anyway,
Yeah.
maybe that would work with the path north of, maybe it would work out well. Sure, having a path north of the tennis courts there to the playground.
And actually, this is Councilwoman Bourne, and I appreciate everything, any suggestions, any ideas that you have, I'm happy to bring them forward. And I'm glad you're reviewing this. I think you should be able to be doing this. This is a democracy, I think. So, but I bring that up.
Does anyone else have concerns about if we were to suggest a slightly larger path that would connect directly from the sidewalk north of the tennis courts to the playground? I mean, I think there's pieces to this we don't know.
Right. There's always something.
So are you thinking, is your idea to run the path east-west on the north side of the tennis courts, or north-south on the west side of the tennis courts?
East and west.
East-west.
Like through that location.
That would run, go by the
Yeah.
playground.
Yeah, it's the playground right there.
So essentially location number one, but just push down a little bit south so it's directly in line with the north side of the
Right.
Right. And again, there might be engineering or other issues that we're not aware of, including past agreements and things like that.
But I think we're all pointing out some deficiencies with the options on the table right now. This is just something else to consider.
So we could make a recommendation, but we're not.
Does that mean it does look like there would be space?
This is Will Harbauer again. Could that be taken, I maybe not give it a recommendation, but maybe is that an option that can be brought to the Recreation Committee or the Safety Committee?
What are you asking specifically, Will?
What we were discussing was like location number one that was on the Fort Meigs crosswalk study. Location one, thinking that might be more in line with what's like council would be thinking of, and if there might be a path that could then link from location one to the playground.
I would like to ask Todd, who I believe is an engineer, what his thoughts are on that. How do you feel on that?
I had already kind of given my 2 cents. Actually, I had one of my colleagues who's a transportation expert look at this, and she thought that number 2 was good, but bringing up what Will has brought up about, and what Aaron has brought up as well about some of the cons of that location, as well as the other locations, I think that's a good compromise. It is an additional expense for sure, and things that we don't know, but that does seem to be a way to direct people to the playground without getting in the way of the tennis courts, or without moving the location of the speed limit sign, or without directing them to a path that, again, this path on the south end of the tennis courts is going to dump folks out into the parking lot with no direct way to get to the playground still.
Okay.
So to me, that seems like a good option. It's a more expensive option, but it seems like a good compromise based on what's been mentioned.
Okay. All right. Okay. Are all of you asking that I bring that forward to both the Recreation Committee, and I do sit on the Safety Committee, maybe both of those committees, one of those committees?
We could all vote if that helps. Would that help if we all voted yes or no for you?
It's up to you. I'm asking the question.
Sure, let's vote and make a recommendation to look into it. So I'll make a recommendation, look at location number 1 and above or north of the tennis courts, maybe run a multi-use path and then go to the playground. So,
Okay.
all right, so I make a motion and.
Can I amend that slightly?
Okay, yes, go ahead.
Push location 1 down slightly south so it's in line with that path.
Thank you, yeah.
All right. I can second that.
All right, I'm just gonna do a roll call. If you are in favor, you can say yes or no or abstain. Aaron Finley,
Yes.
Randy Farringer,
Yes.
Todd France,
Yes.
Rick Giltz,
Yes.
Will Harbauer,
Yes.
Christopher Patrick,
Yes.
Okay, I will bring that forward for you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You got it. Are you ready for my report?
I believe so. If no one has any other comments?
Okay.
Go ahead, Deborah.
Okay, all right. Well, the first thing I'd like to say is I think that the meeting I attended the last time was very well run. So thank you so much, Aaron. Thank you all members of Prac. I think you did a fantastic job. And I'm very pleased with your efforts and the work that you do. I also brought up the paving about Orleans. And I think you're on the right track on that. And there seems to be some pushback, and I'm not sure why, regarding this. Because I think it makes complete sense, which you all voted on, because it is $120,000, and it does flood a lot, and then the flooding kind of goes into the Maumee, at least from an environmental standpoint. So I think you're right on track on that. So I wanted you to know that, and I do plan to bring that up to finance as well. And I did want to let you know that the bathrooms were opened up, but Mr. Isaacson went ahead and said that for me, and thank you, Mr. Isaacson. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
And also, I did bring up about the path around that was suggested by Tony Wade around the Three Meadows Pond, and that seemed to be, people were really kind of percolating on that. So we'll see what happens with that, and I will continue to pursue that and see what happens with that for you on your behalf as well. But again, I very much appreciate all that you do, and I thought it was a very well-run meeting. I think, Todd, you did a fantastic job on your report on the study. I thought that was very well done, and I think there were a lot of good suggestions, just like there are this evening, so, from all of you. So that's all I have at the moment. Oh, I will touch upon the main artery area over at the main artery, meaning Robin Ballmer's group, if you will, in Sylvania, that's with the statues at Woodland. I don't know if any of you have had these comments from people, but I just wanted to let all of you know that I have heard a lot of negative comments from people that have contacted me and said, what are they doing over there? Why are they doing that to that park? And what's going on? So there's been a lot of irritation from the public regarding it. The concerns that I have regarding the statues, are just making sure that the ones that are going in, my understanding is they're going to be there from August to August, be maintained so we don't have graffiti and damage and those types of things. And also, hopefully, we have them insured. That's another avenue I wanted to bring up. So that's all that I have. And again, thanks so much for all you do. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you, Deborah.
You're most welcome.
Thank you.
I'd like to bring something up. And maybe, I know we're not going to be meeting next month, only because of Independence Day and everything like that, kind of shifts things, I believe. So our next meeting is it August?
Yes, hang on a second.
I was wondering if we could, and Deborah, you'll probably be involved in this, but I would like to really see, like, us start considering what the next park is and where it should go. So I think with all the development happening in Perrysburg, it's very important that we have a park.
Well, wouldn't we have to acquire the land? We'd have to acquire the land first.
Right. And that's what I want to get to is, like, there's a lot of development happening around. What is the process? What have we done traditionally in the past? I'd like to have a little bit of history lesson. Like, what have we done in the past for parks? And what is the process? What do we need to do? Because that does fall within our scope. And, giving recommendations to council and to administration about this. So a lot of area now is getting developed, and we don't have a park within walking distance anymore, like in the new areas. Like if you were living in town or more in the center of town, you do have walking areas to go to. I'm fortunate enough to be in that situation, but a lot of these places, you're going to have these little green spaces with these retaining, ponds and things like that, and that's it. That's their green space. That's their park, and it's not a park. And it's not a
I can share, I can share a little bit with you. If you want a little history and what I remember long before I was on council about how the lands were brought forward. Usually families donated the land to the parks or developers, and that's how the land was usually given to the city. That's how it usually worked. Now, the way I understand it now is if you're going to be looking for a new park proper, the city would have to purchase that park. And then that would have to come before city council because funds of $25,000 or more have to come before city council.
Yeah. And maybe those are options too. Maybe there's somebody out there willing to donate land for a park. So, but I think we should discuss it. It falls within our scope, and I just worry that we're going to have all this development and we'll have nothing over there except for like lots. I mean, nothing wrong with development and nothing wrong with growing, but to also put in those things that kind of make Perrysburg, having the parks and enjoying those multi-use paths and things like that. So,
where are you thinking about, Will?
I do not have any place in mind. I just think it needs to be talked about and discussed. So.
Okay, so maybe, it sounds like the way you were talking, you said over there, are you talking on the west side?
I am talking about, yes, the newer area. So the west side, probably south of 475, and And I do know that like the Prac family is donating their land over there to the Wood County Park District, and I don't know precisely where they are, but that's
they're in the township.
That is the Wood County Park District, and it is not a city park, and it isn't in particular area.
Hey, Will.
Yeah.
Just so you know, this is Councilwoman Bourne. The Prac, their land that was donated, yes, you are correct. It's going to go to the Wood County. I guess it's going to be involved with Wood County Parks. However, most of that land, I think, is in the township.
Right.
So I don't know if you're aware of that or not.
Yeah, I was aware of that. But I'm just saying, there is a park over that way, or will be eventually, but we should also think city-wise what we want to do. So I just want to get the conversation rolling. That's
well, thank you,
it.
Will.
So,
thank you. I appreciate all comments.
So that leads me to, our next meeting, can we have that discussion, basically? I'd like to see it on the agenda, and I'd like to, I don't know whether it's the law director, or it's also administration, or somebody who can guide us as we talk about it, and just get us started on that conversation.
Yeah, I believe, Mr. Isaacson could probably tell you that they have I believe it's 11 or 12 parks that they manage right now.
Yes.
So, do you have enough people to manage the parks and another park?
Barely.
That's my concern. That would be my concern.
See, that would be part of the conversation, I think, do we have the manpower to do that? But
Our parks are beautiful, as we know. We are doing everything we possibly can with our current staff as we stand right now. I mean, there's approximately, you want to say parks and streets, but we've got approximately 30 guys out of our building handling the streets and our parks division. But we brought that, but we handle it. I mean, we've got several seasonal staff throughout the season to help us, but
Yeah.
as we can. Yeah.
Well, I'd like to compliment you, Mr. Isaacson. You did a nice job.
Thank you.
So,
yeah, thank you.
you're welcome.
So if I can jump in, this is Todd France. I think Will and I are on the same wavelength because I was kind of thinking about the same issue. And I'm going to show this to the folks here, but this is an image of the dark gray is the city, and the yellow are all the parks.
Yeah.
Right?
And we know where all the development is going to happen, right?
Right, it was. Yep.
And so once those roads go in, they're there for the next centuries, right? So it was kind of interesting. My wife showed me this house that was for sale down kind of southwest corner of Levis across Fort Meigs from there. And they were advertising, that they back up to this open space. And what open space is back there? It's just this little odd-shaped polygon of land that is empty. So the developers left this open space in there that is completely locked by all the lots around there. And if that kind of development continues to happen, then maybe the developers can say, well, hey, we left green spaces or we left these retention ponds, but they're not really useful to folks. And so anybody that lives in this southwest corner of town, they got to drive to get to a park, essentially. I'll also bring up this consulting firm out of Columbus that's done all the surveying with putting together a master plan for the city. And out of their presentation that they've been giving, they said that the biggest concern among folks is growth, which makes sense. The percentage of people that think, or the percentage of land that folks think should be conserved, most people are saying quite a bit. So in the 26 to 50% of land that should be conserved, almost 40% of people think that that's a good amount. 51 to 75% of land that should be conserved, 28% of people think that was an appropriate amount, and then 16% said even more than that. So kind of to summarize that, 83% of our residents, based on these surveys that they did, think that at least a quarter of the land should be conserved, right? And I don't think that's happening because of the developments that are going in. I agree that development is good, but I think that's why the city brought in this consulting firm, is to have a master plan, because people have said they want, what they said, according to this consulting firm, there's a strong desire among residents to improve non-motorized connectivity in the city. If you're a cyclist, Aaron, you know the limited bike paths that we have in the city. Yeah, so it's something that people want. They're not cheap to put in, certainly. But if we're going to continue to grow and develop, then I feel like we should have, give our recommendations as far as what Aaron's talking about. So we're creating these community spaces that people are looking for. It's the reason they can move here. I think unfortunately a lot of the newer folks that are moving in, again, to get to the nearest park, they've got to hop in the car, which I don't think is great. So just thought I'd share that as well.
Thank you so much. Todd, if you have something that you've written up, can you email it to me?
Yeah, I can do that. That's fine.
Thank you.
Say something, right?
Yeah, So it sounds like for the next meeting, and then probably for a while, you know, we can talk about this, but I was kind of thinking, like, I think in a way to work out with the current budget and then staffing issues, definitely there needs to be a new park put in, maybe try to, if we can eventually find out like several like alternatives and then try to pick one, but maybe try to pick a park that's not really that huge as in terms of like budget control and staffing control. I think that might potentially could be something like throughout the inner workings and trying to get it all on paper, then trying to get it passed and then agreed on, but maybe try to put one in but not have it be, you know, humongous per se.
As an example, at least from my having many of our parks are near our schools. Currently HBI, there isn't really any park space there. Yet the opportunity exists that could be, you know, I mean, it's already a magnet, it's a community, and it's in that area, and there is land that's undeveloped near it.
There's trails that
That's
go
really,
there.
yeah, trails and a school.
So the
That's a really good
schools
point.
give you that, and I think we're not far from a new school in the next several years for our elementaries. And, you know, if anything, the city should be looking towards those areas because the use of the parks is beneficial to the schools also. Anyway, and they're already, when the school board makes decisions, they're making them based on projections for the growth and the needs of that area where they build the school. Piggyback on those.
So this idea of green spaces that are linked with multi-use paths is not news to the mayor's office or city council, but I think we could just kind of reinforce that idea from our standpoint. Certainly if we have some specific suggestions, I think that would probably be more useful. So do you have any suggestions on what exactly we should be thinking about?
Not particularly, but only because, like, I don't know where to start. That's basically where it runs into. Like, and that's what I'd love to hear, like, so, and I could be wrong in this, but from what I understand is, like, the city says, this could be a zoning thing, like, they have to put those retaining, like, ponds and things in because, I don't know if it's part of, like, city code or whatever, the developers have to set aside X amount of land for that. Or it can be set aside for something, it can be all developed and it has to be like a monetary thing for, I don't know if that's true or not. I was talking to John Smith, Councilman John Smith about this a little bit, and we were talking about this. So I could get this completely wrong, but it could be either that retaining, like green space that isn't very useful, or it could be, maybe it's a park over a few blocks that way. I don't know how that works. I would love to find out what that whole process is. It'll probably take information from, zoning and probably Mr. Walters or whoever.
Sounds like a planning and zoning
Okay.
issue.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, like, that's what I want to know. Like, what are the tools that are already being used, and can those be adjusted to make this happen?
So last year at one of our meetings, it was discussed that there was some smaller development going in, and that development was putting in some kind of a green space park. But it was also mentioned that that was the first time when a developer has done that in years and years and years, because apparently there's some kind of, as my recollection, there's some kind of an additional fee that they can pay to basically get out of putting in a park.
That might be what I'm thinking of.
And so to me, that tells me the fee is way too low, because they're just going to do that and say, yeah, we'll pay the fee, and then we'll put in 2 extra plots.
Yeah.
So,
But that does bring an opportunity. Those fees could go to a new park. Like just don't know what that would look like. But would love to know a little bit more about that, so we could make our own implementation at some point.
So how about I put it on the agenda for August 2nd?
Okay.
And then let me talk to Kate tomorrow, and then also my boss, my administrator is Brody Walters, and he could give you more of a simplified rundown on how the new developments, what the requirements are. Like, there is an open space fee. I don't understand all of it, so he would be able to walk you through it better. So I'm not sure if he would be able to make it, but let me see what I can do.
Thank you.
Yeah, you know?
That'd be awesome.
Yep.
So, cool. I don't know, anything else?
No, I think as far as, Ron, you mentioned about maintaining the parks, not all parks have to have, you know, a playground and a ball field and all that. It could just be trails and whatever.
Yeah.
And we are looking into naturalizing some of these parks as well, so it's gonna help them lower our maintenance standpoint. That's for certain. I know there's been talk with the mayor and Greg and my boss, Rob Ross, and, for example, Woodlands Park, the center of Woodlands, turn that into more of a natural type growth of, you know, a lot of mowing.
Mr. Isaacson, are you planning on putting out natural plants? Because I know I brought that up several times before about the parks and also along the river. Is that going to be done and pursued?
We're looking at reducing our mowing, let's put it that way.
Okay. Oh, but in addition to that, but I mean, so the runoff doesn't go into the river. That would be my.
Stabilization is key, right? Less maintenance, less chemical, less use for in those areas that maintain and then run off in the river. Like, you know, as you know, with Riverside and the naturalization there, we're working with Little Little Zoo and incorporating all the wildflowers there. But at Riverside, it takes time. It takes years for establishment to get to where you need it to be. But that,
And actually, I think it was supposed, and Mr. Isaacson, I think it was supposed to be being done over behind and around Hood Park, if I'm not mistaken. Around those tiers.
Yes, there is.
You know,
And those are established very nicely too, if you take a look at those.
I have.
There's
Yes,
also
yes.
a section at the small pond of Three Meadows that has been naturalized by wildflowers, if you take a look at that. But
Yep.
it takes time and it takes effort, and people think it's all native holder, and they think a weed is a weed, but it's not really a weed.
Exactly. And it's good because it stops the pollution also,
Sure.
which is good. It's a positive thing.
But yeah, we are considering all those different ideas of establishment and reducing our mowing, overall mowing.
Yeah.
Naturalization of a lot of areas.
Yeah, I think when I spoke with the Toledo Zoo and asked some questions about it, I talked with Mr. Saylor, and he told me one of the areas over in one of the tiers I looked at and showed him, he said it was going to be about low cost.
Yes,
Of like, I think it was $3,000, I think.
Yes.
So that's good.
But yeah, we're working hard on it, that's for sure. We did end up picking up a new piece of equipment this year. Greg told me about this, is a remote control mower. That's fantastic. And we're able to help us maintain these hillsides in a safe way. And it's going to help long term with helping those areas establish. So instead of just letting it grow.
Anything else from anyone? That leads us to item 6, a review of action items from the meeting. And I believe the only action item we had was in regards to just bringing up the idea of possibly moving crosswalk 1 further south to run parallel along the north edge of the tennis courts at Rotary Park. And then possibly seeing the feasibility and costs of a path to run from that crosswalk to the playground. Sound about right?
Yes, that's good.
I think that concludes the meeting.
And I'll just say, I've been talking a lot today, sorry. Catherine mentioned that that's kind of outside of our scope, but I also think that if this committee didn't bring that crosswalk up, I don't think it would be at the stage or really consider it. So I think we should just continue to give our recommendations, and hopefully we can get a ball rolling on some things.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Sullivan Rose.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.